What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to this tutorial. This is episode 28 and I think we're just gonna start the lips. I think that's what we're gonna do. I've been looking at it and that's what I said in the last episode, so I should probably stay true to what I said. Anyway, so the lips are pretty complicated, so what I'm first gonna do before we even get into the actual lips itself is we're gonna draw the teeth, not only to procrastinate but to also do something that is a little easier first, that is more relational to what we just did. So maybe seeing yet another thing drawing with the same kind of technique will again reestablish what we're supposed to do here, and then we can get into drawing the nitty-gritty of the lips, because the lips are going to be drawn a little bit differently. It's still kind of the same, but it's going to be the methods. There's going to be a lot more points and there's just going to be a lot more choppiness to it, but that's what's going to help us get this choppiness look to the lips. When we want to capture more texture, we're gonna have to do something a little different with the mesh. Anyway, let's start with the teeth. And what I'm gonna do with the teeth is the two front teeth, this one and this one will be two separate meshes. So it'll be completely two different closed shapes. And then the layer that is behind, like all the teeth that are behind the two front teeth, are gonna be one consistent mesh. I'm just gonna make it all on one mesh. And then I'll probably even make this little spot its own mesh too, just because it's just to make it easier on myself, really. Like if I don't have to make that within the teeth mesh, I probably won't do it. But let's get started. So we're gonna start by making let's make a lip layer. That's the first step. Okay, so let's take our rectangle tool and we're gonna make a square by holding down shift. Get rid of the stroke. We just want it to be filled with white only, and we are going to turn it to kind of follow the directionality of the teeth. The teeth are kind of running on a 45-degree angle, and so is my square. So that is what I want to see. So this can actually be smaller, so I'm actually just going to scale it down. It doesn't really need to be a perfect square, just to make it easier for me. So that's about the size I could start out with. That's fine. It could be a little bigger. And I am going to control click the eyeball on the layer to make it go into outline mode. And now what we could do is we could take our gradient mesh tool. We can select the center. So now we have a mesh just started in this shape, and we do have 4 more points to work with. And now we could start blockading in our shape that we are looking to draw. And it's not going to be perfect at first because we're going to need to be adding more points to make it perfect. We want to be as perfect with the lines as we can. You can use your convert anchor point tool to help you in this situation. And if we're gonna follow this path, this curvy path of the lips, but I'm gonna need more points than one. So we're gonna see in a second what we need to do to fix that. I'm just fixing my handles right now for the most, what I can do at the most right now. Okay, it looks like this is going across the center of the tooth. That's what we want to see. This can be pulled down. Alright, we want to round these edges off where they can be rounded. She doesn't really have sharp teeth, they come to a naturally rounded point. Even though it does come to a quick stop, we want to make sure we are being smooth. Alright, so that's the start of the tooth, pretty much. You could see that we have now blocked in the tooth we were trying to draw, the shape we're trying to draw. So I'm going to start out by just fixing my top edge here, and by doing that, we're going to need another point about here so we can have this indent, because as you can see how the lips kind of come in, and this is going to be my guideline for the rest of the lips. I need at least one line that is perfectly representable of the change of color between the lip and the tooth, and this is what I'm creating right now, is that line. It's that perfect divide line. So that's pretty much a more solid look of what I needed to see on the top. So let's look at this tooth. We're not going to get at all too detailed. We want it to be a smooth looking tooth, but we just want to see where we need to place points to get that look across. Like, where are my shadows, where are my highlights, where are my midtones. So we can see that we have shadows on the top and a little bit on the left. So I want to make sure I have just a few points to make sure I could select that color in that area. and you could see that we have this little change of color right here, this tan kind of bubble. These highlights I'm going to draw separately just because that's how I prefer to do those little spot highlights. I don't want to draw them within the mesh, it's going to make it too hard. And maybe I can put a point right down here just to get that color change towards the bottom of the tooth to get that dimension. And maybe one a little bit closer to the edge. And I think that's pretty much all I need to get this idea across on the tooth. I just got to make sure when I fill in the color, it's blended properly. So we're just going to quickly fill in this tooth right here. And we are filling in the tooth by using the direct selection tool to click the points, and we're using the eyedropper tool to select the color that you think is best representable of that area around that point. And what I did is I selected the direct selection tool with A on the keyboard, and then I hit the eyedropper tool with I on the keyboard, and now I'm just selecting with my control key on my keyboard back and forth between the tools, because control will hot swap the last tool you just used. Alright, so that's pretty much the tooth. I would say pretty spot on for the most part. Really not much we need to do. I'm going to do a little bit of blending. And by blending, I'm going to take points and select the color from the right of each point on a line. See how I just selected the right to each? So now I'm going to select my point that I finished on, and then now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the left of each point. Okay, you see what I'm doing here? We're blending the color up and down, and we're kind of mixing color now. And I think that's good right there. I think I'm just going to fix this corner, make it all one shade. Make this a little brighter. I think that's looking pretty solid. Let's bring the lips above the face. So that's one tooth. So let's do the rest of the teeth. Alright, so I'm just going to hide this by hitting Control 3 on it after it's selected, and we're going to do the same exact process we just did. Now, I didn't really go too in-depth with that process with the tooth, and I would hope you would watch previous episodes where I consistently go over in more detail of how I just did what I did, and there's a lot more complexity to other parts of the video which will help you, simply like the nose and the entire other parts of the video other than the teeth are going to help you learn this. So if I didn't go over it and you're a first clicker, then please watch the previous videos or click on at least one of them. It will definitely sum it up. Alright, so I'm going to just do this right now really quick. I'm just going to put it right in the middle, and then we're going to turn it about like that. It doesn't have to be anything specific. Alright, so now we're just going to move our points back so bottom stays in the bottom center, bottom left is the bottom left, and we are just boxing in our tooth. Alright, just like before, we can't be perfect with what we have, so we have to take our carrot and we have to do some individual adjustments to the curves. I think I'm going to need to add a point over here, because I'm going to keep that fine line from the lip. Right now I'm defining the bottom of the lip with these teeth, because I'm probably going to place this layer under this part, because this is what I'm drawing first. So whatever we're drawing first, such as the inside of the mouth, I'm going to put the lips, the actual exterior of the lips, are going to be behind the teeth. So there might even be like a hole in my mesh in the middle where it'll be covered by this stuff. And you'll see if you're not understanding or visualizing what I'm saying. It does take time to get to that point, so let me do this first and then we can get there. Alright, so we're pretty much almost done with our shape here. There we go. Alright, so once again, we're just going to take a quick look at our tooth and understand, you know, what is going on in the tooth, where is the shadows, where are the midtones, where are the highlights, and where's my center point. And right now, my center point isn't really too complex on this tooth. I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm just trying to create a nice, simple, smooth mesh and not overcomplicate such a very simple blend of colors like the tooth. But we have shadows at the top, and we have a mid-tone at the middle, and maybe some highlights over here. And then it kind of gets a little bit maybe darker at the edges, and there is some hue change going on. So we want to make sure we have points there to capture that. So I'm just going to place a point at the top where the shadow's happening. Again, don't want to be overcomplicated with it. Maybe we need a point there, because we do have this kind of like shadow line from the shadow of this tooth. And then I want to point right after that because I want to be able to define the difference of color between this shadow and this change right here. And we want the change to happen right here in the center. And maybe one more point at the bottom and one on the right. I think that's gonna sum up that tooth. So let's fill in the color really quick. Alright, so that's that tooth. Let me unhide the other tooth by hitting Control Alt 3. And that's what we have so far. I'm going to bring this to the front, just like that. Let's bring the face back. It's looking pretty good. I mean, it's hard to see when you don't have lips, but just the way it goes. Alright, so I'm just going to actually do this simple shape really quick just to get out of the way. And we're going to place this behind just like that. Okay, we're going to place a dot in the middle. Got to get rid of the perspective grid. I just turned it on by accident. Hold on. I hate this thing again. Oh my god. All right. So we're going to hit the center and the control click that so we can get the outline mode. It's kind of hard to see in the dark, but it's just the way it goes. You have to make sure it's selected to see it, and then we can change the color of the point. Like the lines right now, it's a light blue, so I can see it in this darkness. Can zoom in. I'm going to lock this shape. It's going to get in my way very quickly, and I just need to see the boundary line so I can pretty much just follow it right behind it. I don't want to just go too far if I don't have to. So that's fine, because this is going to be behind this tooth, so I just want to hide that edge. I don't want to care about that edge if I really don't have to care about it. Alright, so you can see that shape that we kind of defined within the mouth that is kind of identify as the shadow behind the teeth. And you can see that we've bounded it in. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's up for you to decide where the actual edge is. All right, so now that we have our frame constructed, what we want to do is pretty much just leave it pretty simple, except for the fact that I do want to just shape this part out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a point where these points intersect. So like this line, this color change line, when it intersects the mesh, I'm going to add a point. So that's going to be my start to it. And then what I can do is I don't have enough points yet. So since this is now my edge line, right? This is supposed to be my edge line. I can need to place the point here, and then I can bring that down like that. Because now this entire line is going to start to shape my color that I'm trying to capture here. So I need more points here. I don't have a point. I can add one here, or I can add one here. I don't think it's going to matter too much. It's really preference. As long as you're doing justice to the shape that you're trying to create. You can definitely have multiple ways this can be completed. It doesn't have to be done exactly like I'm doing it, but it will get the results that I will obviously be showing you on screen. And so that's pretty much all you need to show right there for that. I'm going to add a point in the middle so I could source that color and fill it in this box. If I take this as like a box here, these points in the middle are going to be able to show the color that's inside of this box, and that's going to be able to get that pink purple in difference to the black. And maybe I just need one more point right here. I need to make sure this shape right here, this kind of tan to red, orange, brown area where it comes out of the shadow and starts going towards the lips, I need to make sure I shape that. I need to show that. So this point right here I'm going to use as my barrier line. So any point along this line is going to be my barrier. So now this one is misplaced. I have to move this guy down, and now I have to mess the Bezier curves up right here to align and start following that line and trend, that color trend. Alright, so I need more points. So I see an intersection with the line right here. So I'm going to add a point right there. So now, this guy I could fix, just like that. I'm gonna bring this guy a little closer, and then we could fix these curves, and then I'm gonna move this guy in so it's not so dramatic on those Bezier curves. Fix it up like that. All right, so now that we have divided the black part of the shadow to the lighter part, we now have to make sure we can see this color. the edge points are not going to be able to do all that work. So we're going to need a point right inside that box, and so we can pick that color out of this area and show it. Same thing with over here. We kind of lose this detail. See how we have no points in between here? That's going to be able to show that color. We're going to need to put a point right there, so now we could source the color right there and place the right tones in the right spots. So that's pretty much the extent of this shadow. That's all I really need to see when it comes to mesh. I'm going to fill it in really quick and we'll see what we have to change. Alright, so that's it with the color filled in. I'd say I can leave it. I mean, I don't think it's gonna... I think it looks fine, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's gonna be a big deal if I leave it like that. I think it looks pretty identical to what I'm trying to get to. You know, for maybe just a little darker on these shadows, but I think that's about it. Maybe just 1 point in here, just to bound it off. Alright, that's looking good. Let me send this to the back behind that tooth. So now what we have is, I mean, let's show the face. So we're building the mouth right now. You can see that we're starting to construct every piece needed to be able to see what's going on. So now that we have these shapes created, I can unlock this actually. And let me just make sure everything's layered right. I'm going to group these so they are consistently going to be in the right order, top, middle, bottom. If I keep them grouped, they will stay like that no matter where I move them. Plus now I can lock them pretty quickly and just work with them much faster because I know they're in the right place. I know they're doing the right thing. So now I could just lock these. Actually, no, let me just hide these instead of lock, because I need to start making the shape for the teeth on the bottom of the, you know, her lower teeth. So we're gonna do the same exact thing we've been doing all 28 episodes, and we're gonna select the point in the middle. We have a center point now. Just gonna rotate it, and then what I'm gonna do is just scale it with holding down Alt from the center just to make it wider really quick, and then we can put the outline mode back on and start adjusting our mesh. And now this mesh is gonna be a little weird to adjust because we're not gonna have enough points nearly to even do what we need to do off the beginning. I'm gonna try and get as close as possible, but I'm probably gonna need to start adding points right away before I even get the first frame, because I'm probably, again, going to need points to make the first frame. So let's keep moving points to where I think they should be. See, like, yeah, I already need points right there. You see that, like, upward thing? I mean, I could try doing it in one shot. I don't know if it's gonna work out well. Yeah, no, I can't do it. I need to go up and down. Like, I need to go down, then up, then down. You need multiple points for that. I think this is gonna be good here. That's looking fine. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually, instead of trying to frame these teeth around this, I'm actually just gonna do what I had set up. I'm gonna go under it. So I'm gonna assume this is gonna cover this part, and I'm just gonna make it easy on myself and just hide the other teeth under that. It's gonna make the mesh a little bit smoother too. When I fill it in, it's gonna be a little bit easier to color. It's gonna be less points. So I think that's the better route. All right, so you can see that we need a little bit more points for the bottom to shape it out. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Just gonna complete this frame. I need another point to come up here. See how I need to go down, then up, then down, then up. I need a point on those peaks. Just like that. So now we have a frame. So let me just adjust our Bezier curves because we have some collisions right now. That's gonna create some harsh color. All right, so I think the center point is fine where it is. So we're gonna start out and just go left to right to make it easy. So this is pretty much almost like a two-tone shape. You know, I have a dark and a light right here. So what I need to be able to do first is I need a point in the middle just so I can be able to work with this area. I don't have any points to work with over there, so I need at least 1 point, and I'm gonna start with the middle of that shape. Already, I don't like what's going on with this mesh. I don't like how this is boomeranging out like this. So what I need to do is I need to start shifting everything over manually, cannot rely on the mesh to do everything correct. We have to identify when there's kind of like a weird problem going on. And then we can continue to fix our mesh down the line to make it work. So this is my center point line, and it kind of looks weird to me unless it is the center point and it's going through naturally like up, you know, I would say it needs to run from here to here to make this make sense. So I think that is a decent spot, and you can see what we're doing here. We're pushing this all the way over so we have room. We're not deleting points. We can't delete points. And then we're shifting this right here. And now we have a good center point for that tooth. Just like that. And you see the difference before it boomeranged out, and now it's just straight. So hopefully we can see the difference there. Alright. So I'm just going to add a point at the top because I needed somehow to get this shade up here, this dark shade, and I need a way to get this light shade. So I'm just going to add another point down here. And for the most part, that's all I really need, but I do need to complete this shape. I do need to define the edges of this tooth, or else we're not really going to see it. It's going to look like one big painted slob. It's not going to look like teeth where they're separated. So in order to do that, I'm going to add one more point towards the top edge of this tooth. We have to understand that there's like this imaginary line going around the tooth right now that's kind of bounding the shade. So we are kind of bound the shade of the tooth. So this is my top line. Now I need to follow this path, and I have no points to follow. So what I need to do, I need to add a point on this line. So now I have lines going all the way around and following that path. And because we set up our mesh right beforehand, it kind of already did all the work. You can see that we need just to do a little bit of adjustment right here. And we're binding in the teeth. We are boxing in that color. We do not want the pink to be combining with the tan too fast. All right, so I'm going to create one more point in here to get that light pink between the edge and the transition edge between the lips and the tooth. And then what I need to do is I need to create another point right on this edge here to define this contrast point, this edge. Already we have a mess up when I click that. So let me straighten this out. Alright, so now we have a good defining edge of this line. And if we actually look at this a little bit more non-biasedly, we can almost just see the shape of the tooth. You can follow this line all the way around right here, and we have the whole tooth edge. And now we have this kind of half oval shape for a tooth, and it stops at this line. So now the next point we need to make is a line right in the middle here to define that color that is happening between this point and actually this point. So this is really what we need to see, is this. I'm going to straighten these out. Okay, so that's what we have. That's looking pretty decent. So now we could see a defining edge for the left of the shadow, the defining color for the middle of the shadow, and the defining edge for the right of the shadow, which is also a defining edge for the next tooth. And eventually we're going to get all the way down until we finish every tooth. And this is pretty much no different than every single other mesh that we have made so far. And that's what I keep stressing, because like I'm on episode 28 now, and I've done the same technique over and over and over and over and over again, and that's really what mesh is. Once you get this kind of this mental, you know, once you get this way of thinking down, this mindset, then this will come very easy to you, and you can pretty much draw anything. It's just really time consuming, and that's like the one deterrent, or one of the main deterrents from doing this, whether it's a hobby or in a project. And that's why it's kind of a reason for my tutorial, because it's an important thing to know. Anyway, you could see this shadow here, this purple blob here, like this, like almost this drumstick, right? This drumstick shape. I kind of already have it boxed in, which is really nice. I just need to cup it around here, this edge, because I have nothing defining that right edge, but it's pretty much drawn already. So this point, I'm going to move this point to the left, and I'll show you in a second why. The reason being is, right now, this is my edge for this shape, and it's going up to the right, which is not possible. I need to follow the edge of this purple drumstick shape. And you can see that we're wrapping around it here. I'm fixing this edge right now as we speak. So we're wrapping around it, and we go up that way, and we can't go up that way. We need to go to the left. You can see now we could do that. We could pull it to the side, and now we're manually shaping our mesh. Okay, you see that? See what we just did there? Very important. So now we have a color sourcing the color in the middle of the purple drumstick, and we have an edge around it, so we're boxing it in. And we just need a few more points for this tooth. I'm going to add one right here just to get this shadow between this highlight and this long transition here between this and this, right before this edge. Definitely need that. And I would say another important piece of this right now is this shadow right here, this darkness. I just have a feeling it's going to be a large role of being able to see the teeth a little bit more 3D-like, more in depth. So let me just box this part in here. So I'm just going to add a point right here. Even though we're going to go behind this tooth, I still want to kind of define this edge right here. And now what we can do is we can add a point right here and one right here. And you can see the reason being is that we needed a way to get a point in the center so I can select this color in the center. If I rely on these edge points without a center point selecting color, it's not really going to do, it's not going to get that brown like you want it to. It's going to be very minimal, and it's not going to capture the color like it is in the drawing. And same goes for right here. I feel like I need a dividing line between this purple and this dark brown. See this light tan? Nothing was there to capture it. See if I do that? We're relying on this point in the brown is going to gradate out to this purple, and that is not what we want. We want a point right in the middle so you can capture that light tan. Oh, accident. I don't really like how these are all bending like a boomerang again, so I'm going to just fix these quick. Alright, so in retrospect, if I were to not have all these points over here and I were to have an edge going around these teeth that I've already drawn, right? If I were to have this edge in this mesh, this line right here, vertical line, would be going down following here, and it would be following this. But in this case, because I have points behind here, I'm going to use this line, and right when I get to this point right here, I'm going to break off and go down and create the dividing line just like I did over here. So watch what I do here. Even though I will have the teeth covering this, I'm creating this line around the tooth because I do want the shadow to capture like it is in the image, because this is going to be very helpful even though I'm covering it. We want to match the kind of geometry of the tooth, and now this line is going to be that first left edge of this shadow here. And that's going to get us to the next tooth. Bring this one up. I'm going to bring this guy down, and we're going to do one of these. See that? Again, we will be covering this, but that's not what we're worrying about right now. We want to get that color perfect. So now I need more points to define the shadow. So I'm going to do the right point of this, this crossing point between this tooth and this tooth. And I'm going to do the middle of that shadow, just like over here. And this is what we have so far. We're getting there for sure. Doesn't look like it, but we are. And we're going to keep going. I'm going to give it a quick save. So I need a point kind of right in the middle here so I can capture this shadow, so I can have a difference in color between this shadow and then this lighter tan highlight here. So I need another point down there. So now I have points selecting all those colors. And pretty much I'm just going to add a point right here just so I have a color variation between the center of this tooth and right before the change between the right tooth and the left. Same thing over here. I'm going to add a point just between the right and the left tooth over here and the edge of the shadow, which I just added with that point here. And I'm just going to keep adding my points that I need because I already have done this 2 other teeth. So I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. But as you can see, we don't need to be way too detailed here because it's just a rectangle of color. Same goes for here. I'm going to add 1 point here, 1 more point before the edge, and I'm going to add the left edge right here, middle edge, right edge. I'm gonna add one more point here, and then one more point here. And that's, I think, all I really need to get my point across for this shape. And you're gonna hopefully watch me fill in this color and be almost perfect. And when it's not almost perfect, I will cry. But we will make our fixes and then it will be done. But we shouldn't have to do much editing. I think I'm just gonna add one more point here before I color, just to box in that purple color a little bit more. And I think I'm about to start coloring. So I'm just gonna jump right into coloring it. All right, guys. So we're gonna again take our. So before I color this tooth, I'm gonna close out the episode here. Yes, I know, very upsetting. But on the next episode, I will color in these teeth. I will fix the blending a little bit. And once we can confirm that all of our teeth and shadows inside the mouth are finished, we will then go on to drawing the rest of the lips. And once we finish the lips, the face will look so good. And then once we do the eyebrows, the face will look so good. And then all we need to do after the eyebrows, all we need to do is the hair. And then once we do the hair, we are just done. It's just over. I mean, other than small details and touch-ups, like all the hard work is just done. And it just feels really good to be this far. And I'm just all in for finishing it now. I'm just ready to go. I'm just so close. And I'm even glad that the hair isn't way too complex. We don't have to do too much brushing. But most of the brushing is going to be taking place up here. Nonetheless, I'm getting ahead of myself. I have to brush the eyebrows too, but again, ahead of myself. My name is Mark DiMattei. You can find me on Instagram at markedarts. That's MARKD_ARTS. I really appreciate you guys sticking it out this long and watching these episodes, or if you just watched this one, thank you. I hope you're learning. If not, please tell me I suck. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Episode 29 coming for you.